You know, some people enjoy composing their own music, chord by chord, and others are happiest when they come across that one perfect song. Work is not a lot different than that. Whether you prefer building your own workflow or using a pre-made template, with Monday.com, you and the team can work in a way that's comfortable for everyone. Tap the banner to go to Monday.com and build your own amazing workflow, or find an awesome template. No judgment.
Welcome to the RuPaul's Drag Race Recap Show for Season 12, Episode 8, titled Droop. My name is Joe Betance, and I am joined, as always, by one goopy droopy co-host. From the podcast Pod is my co-pilot. Please say...
I'll see your ass in court.
Taylor, the Latte Boy. Hello, Taylor, the Latte Boy.
Hello, Joseph Betance.
How are you doing today?
Doing all right. Doing okay.
You know, I love how I do that. You know, I think I've talked about this in the show before, is one of my favorite things about when I used to do stand-up is, you know, you hang out with the comics at a bar beforehand. If you're the host of the show, you have to go back and forth and bring on somebody, take somebody off. So I used to host a lot of shows, and when I hosted shows, I'd be having a conversation, like, let's say you were a comic. I'd be talking to you at the bar for 20 minutes, and I go, hold on, I got to bring you up. Then I'd go to the stage, I go like, all right, well, welcome to your next comic. You know, you've seen him on Pod as my co-pilot, Taylor the Latte Boy. And then you come up, and then I shake your hand as if we haven't been talking for 20 minutes. And that's what it feels like right now, where Taylor and I have been talking. We've just finished a conversation for 20 minutes. We have a segment called Just Between Us Girls, and if you are not a Patreon subscriber at the premium level, you don't know what we're talking about. But what did we talk about today? We talked about Blake Mitchell, porn star Blake Mitchell. We talked about
plus-size male models.
We talked about plus-size male models. We talked about how a person who listens to the show set up a thirst trap account for his boyfriend.
We talked about people who sing in the car on Instagram.
Yeah. Taylor went at length about how he eats Entenmann's donuts.
That's not a euphemism. They're actual Entenmann's donuts.
Yeah. You know, by the way, now I'm wishing I could quit the premium level. Now that I know what we talked about. I'm like, wait, stupid shit that we talked about. Anyway.
It's fine. It's what the people want.
It's what the people want.
And by what the people want, I mean what four people want.
Yeah, what four people want. But you know what, Taylor? Let's jump right into the show. This week, the Queens throw shade at a subscription box mini challenge. For the Maxi Challenge, the girls must create their own product to sell in an infomercial. On the runway category is Black Wedding. I was going to almost post this thing where I said, how long before RuPaul says, why you gotta be black? Which I don't think she did. She said, why gotta be wedding?
Why gotta be wedding?
Heidi sells herself well and wins the Maxi Challenge, while Widow Von Du and Jan underperform and end up fighting for their spot in the competition. Jan can't quite deliver and is asked to sashay away, while Widow survives to see another bait. Can you tell him I'm surviving on 4 hours of sleep?
I was going to say, and that coffee hasn't kicked in yet.
No, the coffee has not kicked in. Taylor the Latte Boy, named 2 things you liked about the episode and 1 thing you did not.
All right. I, for the most part, really liked this episode. I thought this was a really good episode. It gave us just enough storyline and everything about this. I think, for the most part, everybody was where they were supposed to be, as far as in ranking and that sort of stuff. The things that I liked were, I'm not sure if this is replacing the reading challenge this year or if we're getting this on top of it, but I really liked this mini challenge.
Okay.
I thought it was something different where they still got to be shady to each other, but there was some, it wasn't just, you know, we've talked about how bad the reading challenge has gotten over the years. And I was glad to see that this was something slightly different. And if we get a reading challenge, I'm still interested in seeing it, but I was glad for this. And I will make your life slightly easier today. I'm about to make your life slightly easier.
What are you doing?
I loved every single look that came down the runway.
No,
every single one.
That makes my life hard.
Why?
Because you're going to want to talk about every single fucking look and the peplums and the this and
I
the
can
that.
do it, but I can just say now, I loved every single look. The one thing I did not like was I am not a fan of this Bob Harper. I have real problems with him and didn't recognize when they were showing him like on the previews for stuff. I didn't realize that's who that was because I just remember him from 10 years ago on The Biggest Loser. And I know that, you know, he's gone through some things but with the tattoos and the bleach blonde hair and the guy, I'm not a fan of Bob Harper at all. So when I saw that he kind of hitched his wagon to this train, I was a little,
He looked horrible, right? Like, I know he had a heart attack, okay?
Yeah.
But now maybe it does, but he's weathered and aged in a way that I'm like, holy shit, right? And look, there's nothing wrong with that, you know? But to me, then you accept that and you don't bleach your hair. And what's with the awful, did the heart attack give him awful tattoos on his arm? Those horrible, like, it just looked like he was wearing like, it was like he just said, like, you know, like when you get like a test page on the computer?
Yeah.
Like just the whole arm was black. You couldn't make out any definitive tattoo.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm not. I remember I was a big fan of The Biggest Loser when it was first on the first couple of years.
Her name is Lori Rockenkamp, but okay.
First couple of years of Afterthought Media when she was on, I was a big fan of The Biggest Loser. I just feel like, you know, the more that we learned about that show, once the first couple of seasons were off their non-disclosure agreement contracts and could share what actually happened on that show versus actual progress and success. Plus the whole, I remember him specifically, like at one point he had some like big guy that he was like walking up the side of the Hollywood Hills or something. And the guy was like panting and like clearly couldn't breathe and was struggling. And he comes up behind him as the guy is literally on all fours. And he comes up and he puts his hands in the middle of his back and he goes, "I'm saving your life right now." And I'm like, no, you're not. You're doing this for the camera, dude.
Yeah.
You know, and just the whole, there was that. And I remember the first season that I didn't watch because it had started to get more and more extreme was in the preview for the next season. They showed an old man looking like he was having a heart attack because they had like a senior couple and where like the wife is, and like, that's what you're putting in the preview for this. Like, so just everything about it is just kind of gross to me. And I know that he's the host of The Biggest Loser now.
Oh, he is?
Yes, they started doing it again, I think, on USA. Okay. And he's the host now, and they have other people who. Yeah,
because he used to be that fat pig Caroline Ray, right? Which is always so ironic that
she was only for the first season, and then it was Allison Sweeney who was on Days of Our Lives.
Oh, I thought whatever happened to Caroline Ray?
She occasionally does like the Comedy Central roasts. I just watched a Comedy Central roast of I think like Rob Lowe, and she was on that, and. I mean, you know, she did Sabrina for years.
But she was one of these people they were always trying to make a thing. You know? There's always a boring blonde white lady that Hollywood tries to make a thing. First ever there was this Caroline Ray. No one cares about her, right? Then,
Bonnie Hunt.
I thought literally the word that was about to like literally it was coming out was Bonnie Hunt.
Bonnie Hunt.
Yeah. And now there's Eliza Schlesinger, who is a horrible human being. I knew her from
Nancy Travis. Nancy Travis is another one that they're constantly throwing in sitcoms and throwing in TV shows.
Oh, who's Nancy Travis? I don't know who that is.
She's on the Tim Allen sitcom now. She plays his wife.
Oh, okay.
But she was one of those actresses that for a while, like they would bring her into shows and it would almost immediately get canceled after she was sort of like one of those like the guy that was on Happy Days and he was on Married with Children and he was on The Love Boat.
Ted McGinley.
Like he was another one that he would show up on things and then immediately things would get canceled.
Yeah. They just try and make him these things. It shows you how little Hollywood knows sometimes. There's Eliza Schlesing's a horrible human being. She's mean. Oh, what a horrible, mean person she is. I don't like her. I don't know. And by the way, it's not just a joke thing. I don't know any comics that like her. And I just hear constantly story after story about what horrible human being she is. I'm glad she hasn't taken off. I hope she never takes off. It's a terrible person. Anyway, hi. What were we talking about?
Well, what are two things you liked and one thing you did not?
Oh, yeah. that's going to be rough for this episode, and that's not saying that this is a bad episode, because a bad episode I have a time where I want to say 2 things I didn't like and 1 thing I did. To me, I didn't like it as much as you did. I didn't hate it. To me, it was a very standard run-of-the-mill issue episode, right? It was the episode, like, that's what RuPaul's Drag Race is, and I was entertained, but I'll forget it by next week, What things I liked? Ooh. Okay, I liked all the wedding dresses that came down. Even though I feel wedding dress is an easy challenge for whether it's Project Runway or a drag show. I think it's a challenge that lends itself to always looking good. You know?
There's a lot of variation in what you could classify as we saw. Nobody had the same silhouette. There were similar silhouettes, but nothing spot on.
Another thing I liked is I'm glad that Crystal is growing on the judges, and it seems they're really pushing the Crystal storyline as much as I saw from the beginning of the season. But I will say, Taylor, because Crystal's a weird one for me, and I'll tell you why. Because I know both you and I had the same opinion after the Meet the Queens, right?
Yeah.
Where we were like, she seems defeated, her energy is low, and so that led us to predict that she was like the first one out. Okay?
Yeah.
What's weird, though, is sometimes when we're wrong, we're like, oh, like Heidi in Closet is a perfect example. I think I was underwhelmed by Heidi in her Meet the Queens video, but as we saw, she is full of a lot of life and charisma and is not indicative of the Meet the Queens. What's weird about Crystal is I think she's still that person from Meet the Queens, but for some reason, it somehow flourishes in the show. I think she's still insecure. I think she doesn't have the biggest charisma, and she pretty much of the CUNT. From what I can see, she just has more a lot of like you.
Well, I'd say she has more of UNT and not necessarily the CNN.
You're right. And so like it's weird that like my opinions change, but she really hasn't from Meet the Queens. I think the Meet the Queens video pretty much showed us who she is. Mm-hmm. And so it's bizarre that my opinions change.
So one thing you did not.
I don't like this challenge very much. I generally don't like the branding challenges. So it's tough because they want the queens to write these comedy things and they're not really comedy people.
That's what I initially wrote that I didn't like. I wrote the main challenge, but then I some of them were actually pretty good.
Oh, really?
Thought. Yeah, some of them were good. Some of them were not good, but I mean it was better than other ones that we've seen.
I said this last night in the first response, which is, and this is why this is a tough episode for me, is there was nothing I loved and there was nothing I hated. So a lot of it's going to be like, yeah, it was a thing. And that's what makes it tough for, like, when you're critiquing something or analyzing something, when it's really horrible or really great, your job is very easy.
Yeah.
But when it's just like a B or B minus, then you're like, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I think you saying I was entertained is a really good is a good way to describe it. It was definitely something where I sat. I was oddly
Evie Oddly?
Yeah, I was Evie Oddly. So I'm about to bend backwards for everybody. Mm-hmm. The end of this episode, for some reason for me, I this week was rough with work. And I think that I was kind of in my feelings a little bit. So watching the end of it, my emotions were heightened watching it. And particularly the lip sync, Widow's lip sync was kind of on my list of things that I really like too. I feel like Widow's lip sync was one of the best, if not the best lip sync of this season, maybe one of the best lip syncs of the series.
Of the series?
Not like top 5, but definitely in the top I thought it was this felt to me very similar to Dita Ritz in front of Natalie Cole kind of thing, where she was not going to, this was a love letter to Shaka Khan kind of thing. And I was very, and I snuck into the Discord discussion last night a little bit, and this song in particular, I love this song. So it was just very much watching her do that and the whole thing with Untucked was a nice thing for Widow.
What does that have
to watch Widow go through that?
What does that have to do with you sneaking into Discord?
Because I mentioned in there that I love this song.
Spoke.
That I absolutely love this song, and was watching some of the listeners not know who Shaka Khan was, and made a joke that I was going to keep a list, and then I was going to tell you who you needed to block from listening to the show.
Well, that's a good question, because it came up in the first response yesterday, and I have it in my notes. When RuPaul announced Shaka Khan was going to be on that, now obviously Widow had a visceral reaction.
Yeah.
But then the other girls are like, and
no, they seemed a little bit more excited than.
Do you think Crystal knew who Shaka Khan was?
I would hope so. I would really hope so. Particularly, if you're going to be, you need to know your drag history, and you need to know the history of that. Particularly, even if nothing else, know who Ru is a big fan of. So if it's something where she says, if you don't know who Diana Ross is from the Supremes and just Diana Ross, I would hope you know who Diana Ross is because Ru has talked about how much she loves Diana Ross. And Shaka Khan seems to be the same, maybe not at the same level as Diana Ross for Ru, but she has referenced Shaka Khan before. We've talked about one of the best lip syncs, as far as I'm concerned, from the episode that we did a while back, was Trinity doing "I'm Every Woman." Trinity and April doing "I'm Every Woman." So it felt on par with that today. Last night, I mean.
Here's my question: I don't know if it's a question. I want you to sort of educate me. This is actually one where I wish Larry Flick were on to help. Okay. I actually don't know that much about Shaka Khan. I mean, I know she exists, and I know I'm Every Woman. I know I Feel For You, and that's probably what's the song that goes Shaka Khan, Shaka Khan?
That's I Feel For You.
Oh, okay. Those are the two songs that I know, right? I don't know.
That's a remake. That I Feel For You is a cover.
Of who?
Prince.
Oh, real?
That's an old Prince song from the early 80s, yeah. Which I have the Shaka Khan version I like better, but that's also the album I Feel For You is one of those albums that I loved. I had the cassette when I was a kid, and I loved listening to that. And This Is My Night is the first song. And I'm almost positive when we did an episode where you talked about songs that you think should be lip syncs, I mentioned This Is My Night and saying that would be a great song for a drag queen for a lip sync to do.
It's funny that you say that, Taylor, because you're right. We did an episode where you, myself, and Evan Ayres, you and Evan Ayres chose the top 10 lip syncs of all time, and you read your list on the air. And I talked about songs that should be lip syncs, which I think as of to this day, I think that season after, 2 of them were on the show.
Yeah.
But you can now go back. It used to be unavailable. You can now go back and listen to it. And by the way, it's also supposedly, there's the whole technical side of things that I can't get into this episode because I don't understand it myself. It should be that everybody, even if you're not a Patreon supporter, can go listen to at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. In theory, you should be able to do that. I might have more details for that in the rumor mill this week because
that's a great episode, by the way.
It is a great episode.
The episode of us with Evan and I doing our top 10 lip syncs.
And I don't know if it made it to the air, but then after we were off the air, Evan was so drunk.
I was going to say, and you also get to hear the effects of alcohol over 2.5 hours on a human being.
Yeah, Evan starts off not drunk, and by the end, he's sloppy drunk and propositions me and Taylor to show us his ass.
He was going to show us because he was practicing. He had butt plugs that he was using for bottoming.
Right. That's right.
And he was like, I can get one in. I'll show you right now.
Yeah.
And
I was like, Yes, go on. And Taylor was like, nope, stop. No, don't do it.
Because he was out of control. And that's something where it's one thing if he was stone cold sober and said, I'll show it to you, no problem. Mm-hmm. That's different. But that felt very pass the sorority girl around kind of thing. And I was not comfortable with that.
Well, FYI, it didn't happen. Everyone should know. No. And two, but let's say he was stone cold sober. This is a good question here. Let's say he was stone cold sober. He offered it. What would Babalu's opinion? Would you be allowed to watch that?
Well, but I wouldn't ask for permission before he did it, and if he happened to can you hear the thunder? I
heard the thunder. I think that was Babalu's anger hearing about
yes, Babalu knows that we're talking of this, and it angers the Cuban god. Mm-hmm. I would just say, by the way, Evan showed us his ass, and he would go, what? And then I would explain the situation, and Babalu would just shake his head.
All right, let's move on. After Britta's elimination, the group congratulates Gigi on her third win. Jan breaks down crying because her best friend Britta just went home, but the other girls suspect it's because Jan didn't win the last challenge. The next day, Jan skips into the workroom ahead of the others. I'm fine. What are you talking about? Nothing happened. Before RuPaul enters to announce this week's mini challenge.
For today's mini challenge, you'll be pairing up to share the gift of shade and so much more. Now, using these wonderful products provided by FabFitFun, you need to curate a box for your bosom buddies. And then you'll exchange gifts and share the love with a whole lot of shade on the side.
Yeah. They paired up the girls for this challenge. It was a mini challenge where they had to read each other, almost like just being like cunty girls hanging out. And it was Gigi and Jackie, and they were sitting down with Crystal and Jada. Let's talk about that first. Taylor, what were your thoughts on that one?
Well, can we go back to when they first came in from after the elimination?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Because that was really kind of where the meat of any sort of storyline goes, and that was the breakdown of Jan.
Yeah.
And I think that this whole, Britta was my best friend, and now my best friend is gone, and I don't understand why my best friend isn't here, and best friend, which I just keep picturing Ginger Minj and Katya.
Yeah.
That kept going through my head. But I also think that the girls were spot on, that this wasn't about Britta, or if it wasn't about Britta to the extent that Jan was saying. She was shook. Mm-hmm. She was shook. She expected to win last week's challenge, and she didn't. Yeah. And she doesn't know what Ru wants, or what she thinks Ru wants is wrong. Mm-hmm. And as a result, she's in her head, which goes right to the next day of where I'm fine, everybody. Everything's okay. Everything's great. I think that we're watching her spiral.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. As a mental health professional, did it read to you like that, like a version of like, I'm asking for a friend? Let's say a friend didn't win this competition.
Yeah,
but
what would that be like?
Yeah, what would it be like? Because it's like, why do you care so much that Britta went home?
Yeah.
But now maybe because of editing we didn't see it, but it didn't seem like she was that tight with Britta during the competition.
And I was going to say that too. There was no storyline up to this point talking about how they were close. I mean, yes, they knew each other, but you would have thought at some point, especially when the pictures came out of the two of them, where, they've competed against each other in the past and that they've been friends. And you would have thought that would have worked its way. Knowing this is coming down the line, they would have presented that more. I feel like other friendships, an example, even though they didn't lip sync against each other, Jan and Britta didn't lip sync, like Raven and Jujubee is something that over the course of their season and over the course of All Stars, we saw that these two genuinely seem to love each other. And it's where this kind of came out of nowhere, this whole discussion.
Let's put a pin in this right here. Maybe Humble can remind me later, because I think it's something I want to talk about at the end, because it speaks to the end, where there is a lot of love for Jan, particularly, and I'm not saying it's a racist thing, from white people who are really upset to see her go. And it boggles my mind, because not that I felt Jan was a terrible drag queen or anything, and I agree she's cute as a boy. Okay?
Yeah.
But it's one of these things where, like, I felt if we're judging the competition purely on the basis of the competition and what we see is the truth, even though we all know that's not the reality, we have to accept that as the truth, is Jan's run on the show was unremarkable. With the exception of a brief bright spot last week, I felt she was unremarkable, not bad. Just, I didn't see anything of note. And so why people are so pressed that she's gone, unless you have big thoughts on that right now, Taylor.
I think people, particularly this audience, stan a cute white boy. And of everyone we have left, or everyone we had left up before last night's episode, Jan, in my opinion, was the cutest. Well, maybe Jackie, but no, I would say between Jan and Jackie, Jan is cuter. Jan is more somebody that I like to look at. But I also agree with you that she has been higher end of middle of the road, but middle of the road. You know, she definitely has the energy, but she almost has too much energy, as we saw last night. And there was she kept using the words refined in Untucked, and there was really no refinement. She was, you know, as much as we made the jokes during the Meet the Queens of the, you know, I can sing, I can dance, I can act, I can do that, you know, where she just talks. She said that repeatedly through the show. So I think she was constantly just like throwing baseballs at people, constantly trying to get attention. And it got to be where it was just too much. I think that last night, but of the two, getting slightly ahead of the two commercials, Widows was worse, but not by much.
Yeah, I feel, to be honest with you, I feel there were a line of baseline acceptable. All of the sketches were very close to that line, only a little above and a little below. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't think there were any, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but I don't think there were any disasters, but I don't think there were any, like, home runs, to be honest.
Well, I think Widows was kind of a disaster, but they were disasters for different reasons, because if you have the middle of the line, you have the line in the middle, you have Widow was like close to no energy. And then you had Jan was on the absolute opposite end of where I was like leaning back in my chair sort of thing, where you're like, oh my, stop, it's too much. Stop coming at me.
Yeah.
And that I guess was the worst of the two. I think that honestly, that lip sync saved Widow last night.
Well, we're getting ahead of ourselves, maybe because there's not much talked about in this episode.
Yeah.
But let's talk about this mini challenge here. The mini challenge where, okay, like I said, it was Gigi and Jackie were teamed up. Why there needed to be teams, I don't understand actually. But, because they gave away two prizes.
Yeah.
Gigi and Jackie matched up with Crystal and Jada. Your thoughts on this, Taylor?
I thought this was the better of the two skits, the two competitions, and I thought that I thought that Jackie and Gigi were the better of the two. I thought that they did have some pretty funny things, and also one thing that I liked was while they were all kind of serving one another and they were being shady to one another, at one point when Widow said to Jackie, because she was talking when Crystal said to Gigi, it's good for your two faces. And she said, which one? The one that won or the other one that won or the third one? And Widow said, compared to you who have no wins. Jackie played into that with the whole like, oh, you know, kind of thing. And I thought that was a cute moment. I liked this, as I talked about at the beginning of the show, if this is replacing this year for the reading challenge, I'm here for it because it was something different. We all seem to get excited when we see there's going to be the reading challenge. And over the last couple of seasons, you and I particularly have been very underwhelmed with maybe one or two jokes fly, but for the most part, they're not reads anymore. This felt like if you were reading somebody, this felt more like that, of where you're saying something that's supposed to be like a compliment, but it's really sort of just a shady thing to do.
Well, I think that it's weird. I feel it was a very good idea. Did it rise to the success it needed to? I don't know. But it was a good idea because you're right. The girls, for some reason, in the past few years, the reading challenges, they stopped reading each other and just said lame recycle. It was very, very bizarre what they were, because they wouldn't read each other. And then what was weird, and this episode is no different, is the girls are really good at reading each other when they're not having to read each other. So in the elimination day, that would actually be an interesting twist on the reading challenge as well, is to have the girls impersonate another girl. Because they were reading each other very well. Don't they kind of
do that with the puppets?
Yeah, you're right. They do that with the puppets. Yeah. But they've been hit and miss with doing the puppets too. I don't think they did puppets last season. So
yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, I think everyone was like, "Where are the puppets?" So, so when they impersonate the other girls, that's usually a good way of reading. But in the traditional classic reading challenge, they've been dropping it. I don't know if that was the purpose, or if it was because they had a sponsor who wanted to sponsor the reading challenge, and they figured this was a way to do that.
But you know what? It worked. Honestly, it worked. So, I mean, the whole idea of it, and it wasn't just makeup stuff. I loved the being your mug is so busted, I got you a new mug. Yeah. I thought that some of the things, and again, some of them did better than others, but it was a little more clever. The girls had to be a little bit more clever, I thought, with this than they do with the reading challenges. Of, I mean, the example last season of the, isn't she precious? Look, no, really, isn't she precious? That kind of thing just felt, it just was very low hanging fruit. Not all of this was high hanging fruit either, but it was something different. It was something different, but stayed within the scope of what they normally do for the reading challenge.
Yeah. All right. Very good. God, my energy is so, speaking of Droop, it's just like, I could not get to sleep last night.
I'm sorry.
And then I had to finally I did get to sleep when I took a Xanax, but I was like, ugh. But
so you probably still got Xanax in your system.
Yeah, I probably still have Xanax in my system. Maybe just very like, meh. Show.
I don't know. There were guys, they were wearing dresses. They walked up and down the stage.
Whatever.
This one went home.
Especially with this episode. This episode is like, I don't know, it's whatever. Anyway, hi everybody. You know what? Let me try and do something.
We're taping a show.
Yeah, let me do something here. What if do you think I could pretend to be show Betance? Do you think I can like zip it on?
I don't see why not. I mean, I always assume you're show Betance, even when you're not feeling it. That you have the ability to. Well,
I think Joe Betance.
I'm not always Taylor. I'm not always Taylor.
I think Show Betance is still sleeping.
Well, then go wake Show Betance up.
I'm going to do that.
Snap out of it.
Play the Show Betance music. What's the Show Betance music? Is there Show Betance music?
The Lori music.
Do you think the Lori music is Show Betance music?
We will say it's the Lori Roggenkamp show, guest starring Show Betance.
Here we go. Wake up, Show Betance. You have a show to do right now. Okay. Anyway, so Jackie and Gigi win the show, the challenge. Would you agree? And people were making this point that really Jackie won. Like Gigi just sort of benefited from her wake. It wasn't like Gigi was particularly funny. It was Jackie really carrying it. Yeah.
Yes. Jackie, but also you figure when you think about it, Jackie was, Jackie comes from a certain aesthetic that is very Valley of the Dolls, very Jacqueline Suzanne. Like that seems to be that late 60s, early 70s, of which she seems very well studied in. Yeah. And when you think about movies, particularly movies and styles of that, where everything was, you were just starting to see kind of gay culture really kind of get in with movies like Valley of the Dolls and just that bitchy, older woman, ladies who lunch kind of thing. And she looked the part and she played the part really well. Yeah. Whereas I feel like Gigi a couple of times was trying really hard to do Alexis Rose from Schitt's Creek. She was doing a interpretation of that. So definitely between the two, I feel like Jackie definitely knocked it out of the park compared to Gigi.
All right, very good. Here we go. Next, RuPaul entered the workroom to announce this week's Maxi Challenge.
So for today's Maxi Challenge, you need to think like a star and create a ridiculously extravagant and totally unnecessary product. For a new drag queen lifestyle brand we're calling Droop. Now, after you create your posh product, you need to sell it in your own commercial.
All right. While the girls worked on their products, RuPaul ended with the Biggest Loser trainer, Bob Harper, who apparently is also a branding expert. I don't know when that happened. Ru tells Heidi to rename her product. She asks Widow why she hasn't won another challenge. Ru wants to see more from Jan, and Jackie expresses her appreciation for I Dream of Jeannie actress Barbara Eden. Tanner the Latte Boy, your thoughts on the table visits? In the by the way, before that, really quickly, before they enter, if you remember, if you want to talk about this, Heidi revealed that she only made $9,000 last year. I don't know why it's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she's going to get a fat stimulus check this year.
Yeah, I'd say so. She got a 10% raise this year.
Yeah. All right, go ahead. Are you okay, Taylor?
Yeah, it's getting really dark here. So, where I knew we were having a storm come. So, if for some reason I suddenly disappear, I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
You know what? If you suddenly disappear, I'm going to go take a nap. And then we just continue the show later.
Because this is like one of those like lose power storms. Well, you can tell. I mean, it was light out before. Now I'm like sitting in the dark. And it's 11, 13 in the morning.
Looks like you're about to compete on. What's the one where the British lady yelled at you? The game show? Weakest Link.
The Weakest Link. Yeah.
All right, go ahead. So what were your thoughts on these table visits?
Again, brand guru or whatever, Bob Harper, fuck off. That's kind of what my thought with that. But I think, Ru is looking to stir shit up, and she definitely did with Widow, where it got in Widow's head, where she was, you were great the first week, but we haven't really seen a lot from you. What's going on? And there's less and less girls. It's not like before there were still 13 girls here. Yeah. What's the deal? So, and it clearly played with her. It bothered me. It bothered me, but I also understand when at one point towards when they're on the panel and she goes, Widow, what's going on? That she didn't just say, you got in my head. Yeah. But then that would be blaming Ru, and that would have been a guaranteed, well, you're going home because Ru can do no wrong.
Yeah. Now here's the deal. Let's talk about this right now. I saw this in the Discord. I see you talking about it. Now look, I watched this Biggest Loser a little bit, and I have problems with the show, The Biggest Loser, but I never had a problem with Bob so much. Why are you so angry with Bob?
Well, because what we eventually learned was that the contestants really they lost weight, but the whole thing with the scale, which was the reason everybody watched, it was all water weight manipulation of where they would, pretty much tell. And former contestants have said that Bob and Jillian would sit down with them and say, 2 days before weigh-in, stop drinking water, stop taking in fluids, and pretty much would keep them on these really, ridiculously low calorie diets so that they would have much more dramatic weight loss, which is why you would see occasionally when people would, I remember particularly one person had immunity. The way this all came out was one person had immunity one week, and when he got on the scale, he gained something like 12 pounds in the course of a week. And he pretty much said, I drank like 3 gallons of water right before, because then next week I'm guaranteed to have a huge weight loss because I'll do what everybody else is doing. So I'm reactivating my metabolism. I'm screwing this up. I get that I'm screwing this up, this explanation of it. But between the two of them, I always thought, well, I would want Bob because Bob is more zen and he's definitely all about yoga and things like that, as compared to Jillian, who would just scream and yell at you with her weird wonky eye. Yeah. But I just, as the show got on, I just realized that they're both trainers were just kind of gross. That's really the only way to describe it, is they were both kind of gross people. So, and we're not even going to get into Jillian Michaels, because that's a whole other thing with her. She's a horrible human being.
Worse than this Eliza Schlesinger?
I don't know a lot about Eliza Schlesinger, but I'm going to say they are probably on par.
Interesting. Very, very interesting. Yes. And then what about the Jackie doing the I Dream of Jeannie stuff? Were you a big I Dream of Jeannie fan?
I liked I Dream. I was always more of a Bewitched kid than I Dream of Jeannie. I think primarily because anytime I saw Larry Hagman, I thought of J.R. Ewing, because he was her husband on I Dream of Jeannie. And also Bewitched had Endora, again, going back to that style, that history of like, the sassy, clearly gay writers kind of putting words in Agnes Moorehead's mouth. But I appreciate having grown up watching stuff like that and being aware of that sort of stuff, that vernacular. Vernacular is the wrong word, but you know what I mean. I appreciate Jackie's history.
Jackery, that's her name. Jackery.
Daiquiri do.
All right. You know what, Taylor? This is a good tough spot to do this right here. Why don't we take a break, and when we come back, we will go into the Maxi Challenge film. We'll talk about Elimination Day. We'll talk about the looks. We'll do that right after we get back right now.
This is Amy Poehler. My new movie, Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2, is coming to theaters June 14th, and it's making me feel joy and sadness and anger, definitely some disgust, and I think a little fear. But I'm also feeling these new emotions like anxiety, embarrassment, envy, and ennui.
It's what you call the boredom.
Okay, that one was weird. It's going to be the feel everything movie of the summer. Disney and Pixar's Inside Out 2. Rated PG. Parental guidance suggested. Only in theaters June 14th. Get tickets now.
All right, Taylor, and we're back on the infomercial sound. I don't know, guys, you missed. Taylor was pointing. It was strange. And he's pointing in the dark. What's your husband doing right now in the dark?
He's making popcorn because I can smell it and it's driving me nuts.
Oh, you want popcorn?
We watched a video on how to make popcorn in an Instant Pot, and the first time he did it, it did not turn out well, but he put in way too many popcorn kernels, and he had said last night, I'm going to play around with it and see if I can do something better. So I wasn't expecting him to do it now, but it smells amazing in the house. You use coconut oil, and you let the coconut oil, and then you put half a cup of popcorn in, and then it takes like a couple of minutes.
Was that the popcorn?
The popcorn, yeah.
No, was that the popcorn right now, that sound we heard?
Oh, yes. Yes, the Instant Pot just blew up and my husband's dead in the other room.
All right, on the infomercial soundstage, Bob Harper struggles to understand Jackie's vision. Gigi doesn't impress with her line delivery. Jan is told to lower her intensity. Jada repeatedly hits her mic. And Heidi struggles at first, but ends up getting big laughs. And Crystal confuses Bob. Taylor, your thoughts on the whole filming process?
The thing with Widow, where another reason I didn't like Bob was Bob pulled a Todrick.
He did?
Where at one point, where with Widow was clearly having trouble, and rather than talk her through it and help to motivate her, he said, you have to be funny, you have to be on brand, you have to, where he's just throwing more shit at her that I felt like kind of got her more off of her game. And it showed where that was something very Todrick of where they're saying, I'm having difficulty. Well, girl, if you want to win this crown, you're going to need to figure it out. There was something very kind of gross about just that presentation of that.
Yeah.
And it felt like he was laughing a lot harder than some of the jokes were landing with a couple of them. And I couldn't help but notice it was kind of the cuter ones that he was doing that with.
That he was easier on them?
Laughing. Yeah, he was laughing a little bit harder with that.
He was really laughing at Heidi. So you think he's really into Heidi?
Well, Heidi was just funny, but some of the other stuff he seemed very like the whole thing where in the beginning where Jackie was explaining what she wanted. And I know that they've only got 20 minutes. I find it hard to believe that they can't give them like a minute or two to say, this is what I'm looking to do first for her to kind of, and for him to go like, I don't understand. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. You were looking to, stir up drama probably at the behest of the producers and making it to where if she has less time to explain things, that it would make her maybe a little bit more on edge. I would almost say though that had she said, the Merkin, and then sat first and like kind of did the thing where she stood still and then went and got it herself, that was almost always funnier in those shows where they kind of looked the same, but they were off just slightly enough that it was clear that they just kind of replaced it. That would have felt more genuine to those late 80s magic inspired sitcoms.
But what I don't get is, how did Bob not understand what she was doing? Like, it wasn't very difficult. I knew what she was doing very quickly. And
yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying is that he just acted really dumb. Like it's one of these where I know she's only got 20 minutes. So I'm going to see, maybe the producer said, try to drag it out so that it feels like she has less time to do things to see if she gets more panicked. I mean, I feel like Jackie is another one of those that her time on the show is coming to an end. Like when I'm looking at who I think is top 4, I don't know that Jackie is going to be top 4. So I feel like they're starting to do things to get these girls to fuck with these girls' heads a little bit and to get them to where maybe they mess up so that that it makes more sense to the viewers as to why they went home.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe this was an example of that.
All right.
Manipulation.
All right. You know, for me, you know, in terms of the filming, I thought it was. Oh my gosh, this is like that is like it feels like someone is just like rumbling rocks in trash cans. That's what it sounds like. Does thunder scare you?
No, I love thunderstorms. If thunder is direct, if it's where lightning and thunder happen at the exact same time, that's because it's so loud. And I live in Florida. Tampa Bay is the lightning capital of the world. Which is why we have Tampa Bay Lightning. And there have been times where it'll be the storm cell will be right over the house. And I live in my house is a 70-year-old wood frame house. The house literally shakes. And that's a little like where we'll stop and like sort of look at each other like, oh shit. But for the most part, I love thunder and lightning.
You know what you just reminded me of?
What?
This is such a bizarre memory. It's going to make me feel really old. I remember as a very small child, and I have maybe because like HBO or cable TV showed this movie over and over again. I have vague memories of a movie with, I want to say Jill St. James or Jill St. John?
Jill St. John? Or no, Susan St. James?
Susan St. James. Susan St. James, I think.
Okay.
And I don't know who the guy was. And I want to say the movie was called Don't Cry, It's Only Thunder, or Don't Worry, It's Only Thunder. It's something like that. And because you're thinking about thunder, and it was, I feel like it was like they have I don't even remember what the plot was, but I just remember watching this movie over and over again as a kid, which now that I think about it, I think it's like an adult drama. But I don't know why. I think because cable TV I must have been 8 or 9, but cable TV just playing it over and over again. Oh wait, I think producer Luke Stamen has a title for us here.
Yes, it's Don't Cry, It's Only Thunder. And it's 1981.
You see, I was, let me see, 6 years old. Okay.
During the Vietnam War, Brian Anderson, a young Army medic, is stationed in Saigon. Yeah. Initially apathetic and self-serving, he eventually has his heart won over by the children at a nearby orphanage where he does volunteer work. At first, a doctor named Catherine Cross, played by Susan St. James, has to persuade him to help the children. But soon, Brian willingly puts his career and safety on the line to provide the orphans with the food and medical supplies they need.
Oh my God.
I've never heard of this movie.
I don't know why. I think I was going to say, Don't Worry, It's Only Thunder. And I was like, what is this movie coming back? It's like, I'm not even joking. It reminds me of years ago. Okay. Years ago, maybe like 10 years ago, I was in the shower and I was like, and for whatever reason, all the lyrics to one season of Alice's theme song came into my head. And I was watching my going like, I used to be sad, I used to be shy, the funniest thing, the saddest part is I never knew why. Working myself for nothing was my favorite sport. I had to get out and start enjoying, 'cause life's too short. There's a new girl in town and I'm feeling good. Got a fresh freckled face in the neighborhood. There's a new girl in town. And I don't remember after that. But this girl's here to stay. With some luck and love, life's gonna be so sweet. Again, a show that I watched when I was 7 years old. Years later, all those lyrics came back to me. Now, I did lose a line there. In the shower. And right now, a movie that I watched, when you were telling me what the plot of this movie, I had no idea what you were talking about. I don't remember the movie. I just remember there was a movie I watched over and over again with Susan St. James. I haven't even thought about Susan St. James or Jill St. John or whoever. I thought they were the same person.
No. Jill St. John is who Robert Wagner married after Natalie Wood died.
Okay, I don't know who any of these people are. And
you know who Natalie Wood is. Come on.
It's the kind of wood that don't float. But here's the deal, guys.
Low-hanging fruit, ladies and gentlemen.
Natalie Wood was an actress who drowned.
The best part is 75% of the people who just heard that joke will have no idea what that
75%, 92%.
92%.
Okay, I'm gonna. Yeah, now, okay, we have a. Everyone should know who's listening live is for people in our exclusive tier. They get to watch a video of me and Taylor recording this. Okay, so it's a very, 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 very small sample size. What Taylor and I were talking about. No. Do you guys talking about, i.e., Natalie Wood?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to put a simple yes or no. And now, granted, it's only exclusive tier people, so only they get to vote. So it's going to be a small percentage here, but
okay.
But we'll see. Even this is a small sample size, if people know what we're talking about. All right. So, that might have been the juju that I need. See, just making jokes about Natalie Wood's unfortunate death by drowning, is usually what. All right, very good. All right, here we go, and we'll get you guys the polls by the end of the episode. Right now, only 7 people have voted, so
no one cares.
You don't think people are like really hanging on the edge of their seat to find out if the audience knew who Natalie Wood was?
So, well, as of you said, 7 people. Okay, so all right.
Right now, it's almost split. Right now, it's 3 yes, 4 no.
Okay.
Anyway. All right, it's Elimination Day, and the Queens prepare for the main stage. Jan wants to make it clear that she was only upset because of Britta's elimination. And finally, the Queens do their best impressions of each other. Your thoughts here, Taylor the Latte Boy?
Again, we're going back to that. I'm really fine. It wasn't about losing. It really was about Britta leaving. And I want everyone to understand that it was about Britta leaving. And it had nothing to do with the fact that I didn't win the challenge, because I'm fine with not winning the challenge. Everything's fine with not winning the challenge.
Yeah,
I know that I'm really great because I could dance and I could sing. It's just that Britta was my best friend, and Britta is my best friend. And I'm really worried about how this is going to do to her to go this far and not really know what Ru wants, even though that, I can sing. I mean, that Britta can sing and dance and all the things that go along with that. So I just really don't know. But when I was sad, it wasn't about me. It was about Britta.
You know what's weird? It's also like there's some sort of like weird curse, because as soon as Britta left, Jan now was all about New York City. Jan was New York City this, New York City that. What are the girls in New York going to say when the blah 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 when Britta goes home, and they're going to girls, and then I could have brought the home. That's the other thing too, is the weird narcissism that they think that everyone is thinking about them bringing it home from New York and whatnot, and like, does anybody really care?
Well, okay. I think we've talked about on the show that for New York, the New York girls are very big on there's a home team, or not a home team, but there is definitely this, pride, New York City pride in this. And when you've got somebody that is Jan, who is also very well versed in Broadway and seems to live that world, it makes sense that she idolizes, she played Bernadette Peters in Snatch Game. So, multi-Tony winner. So you I think that Jan sees herself as getting the big prize at the end, much like her heroes have gotten the big prize at the end. Probably a Bernadette Peters, a Patti LuPone. What the hell who's the one that was in Cats? The Betty Buckley, that kind of thing of where you see they're wanting to. Betty Buckley was in Cats.
I'm not saying you were wrong. I was like, what a bizarre name to pull out. Okay.
That's what I do. We just talked about Natalie Wood.
Well, you know what? Hold on for a second. So it's funny that you're saying that. So the poll, for the most part, is in, and 50% said yes, 50% said no. And somebody wrote in the chat room, okay, this is very bizarre. Like, let's get this roaster cooking, because I have zero idea who Natalie Wood is. And then Astute Girl says, I know who Natalie Wood is, but I didn't get the drowning reference. Two things. Natalie Wood was a gigantic star. Let me tell you this. Coming to that conclusion that no one remembers anything was one of the most liberating things from my depression. You know, where it was like only the most rare people, the rarest, like presidents or something like that, and even them, not all of them, are remembered forever. You know, and even then, yeah.
Like, what could you tell me about Martin Van Buren?
You know what? I can tell you something about Martin Van Buren.
Of course you can.
Yeah, there is one theory that the phrase "okay" comes from Martin Van Buren because his nickname was Old Kinderhook, and his campaign slogan was like had something to do with Old Kinderhook, and that was okay. You know, like, I'm okay with Old Kinderhook, or something like that, right? And so, who knows how true that theory is, right? Yeah, so that's what I know about Martin Van Buren. Also, the only president where English wasn't his first language. I believe
the first president or the only president?
I believe the only president where English wasn't his first language. Was there another president where English wasn't his first language?
Oh, was not his first language.
Not his first language.
Oh, I was going to say, like, George Washington was from England, but okay.
Yeah.
Well.
Yeah. So anyway,
So getting back to Natalie Wood and people remembering things about Natalie Wood.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know what, guys? Like, seeking fame and fortune, it just, you can't take the money with you. Okay, coin that. Betance, can't take it with you. Trademark. And then also, like, even any kind of legacy is, you're forgotten. You know? Like, so make the most of what you can out of your life now. Do what you want to do. I mean, within reason, you know? And be happy. What's important is being happy. Being rich isn't ultimately the goal. Being famous isn't ultimately the goal, because those are fleeting at best. You know what's so funny? I'm going to tell you something. I've asked young people this all the time, okay? And we'll get back to Natalie Wood. When you ask people who are like 20, okay, who is Bob Hope? A lot of them are, I don't know who the fuck you're talking about. Bob Hope! Yeah. Bob Hope. And everyone should know, if you're like over 30, Bob Hope was like one of the biggest stars in the world. Like, gigantic star. And then he died in the late 90s, I believe. I remember I saw him at a mall. He and his wife showed up in a mall to open up a Macy's or something like that. And he, oh my God, even then it looked like he had died and no one told him. And, but like Bob Hope was like a gigantic star. And like now no one remembers who he is, not even that long afterwards. And
people fly into his airport sometimes.
Yeah, people fly into his airport. Well, there's a John Wayne airport. I feel people know who John Wayne is more than they know Bob Hope. But I worked, the first person that I hired in my team a couple of years ago. She's my age. She's my age. Your age.
And I remember the day that Mary Tyler Moore died. I went into her, because Mary Tyler Moore was a huge TV show for me when I was a kid, and I loved Mary Tyler Moore show. Yeah. And I walked into her office and went, Mary Tyler Moore died. And she looked at me and went, who?
Really?
And I just about came over the table at her.
Is she from this country?
How do you not who married? She's like, well, I didn't really watch TV when I was growing up. I'm like, you're aware of culture. You're aware of history. She was a huge, she was an important figure in the 70s for women.
Yeah.
Working in the workplace. And that's what you are doing right now until I fire you for not knowing who Mary Tyler Moore is.
And this is what people need to understand too. Up until like cable TV was really a big thing and they started making their own shows and Netflix and all that. Like up until I would say, God, even into the 90s, up until like I would say the end of the 90s, it was there were diminishing returns, but I would say definitely the height being the 70s. TV stars were huge. I mean, they were gigantic because there were only 3 networks. There were NBC, ABC, CBS, and that was it. So what's funny is when you see the decline in ratings, because in ratings now, if you can get like a 2 or 3 share, where there's like 4 or 5 million people watching or something, that's like considered huge. Like American Idol, I remember when it was considered huge, right? They were pulling in 20 million viewers a week, 20, 30 million viewers a week, which nowadays are like, that's monster numbers. In the 70s, that's pretty much what like Happy Days was getting every week. towards the end of its run. Like, they were huge stars. So it's not like going
we'll never get a finale. We'll never get ratings or anything like the finale of MASH.
Yeah.
Which there was like 115 million TVs watching it or something that night.
No, that's because the choices were limited then, and so that's what people just did. And there were no VCR, so you had to watch it. You had to watch it live, and you had to watch it. And so the fact that like these were gigantic stars, gigantic. You don't understand. That's my point. People don't remember them. And so Natalie Wood was a famous movie actress. She was in West Side Story. She was in, what else was she in?
Rebel Without a Cause.
Gigantic, right? And she was married to Robert Wagner, who was a huge TV star. Mm-hmm. And she was on a boat with Christopher Walken. Okay.
And Robert Wagner.
And someone pointed out they're still investigating it. Yeah, because evidence has come up maybe that it looks, look, if you're just doing circumstantial evidence, I think Robert Wagner may have killed Natalie Wood. Because Natalie Wood...
Allegedly.
Natalie Wood had this, like, crazy phobia of water and drowning. Mm-hmm. And yet she and Robert Wagner got out in a fight on their boat. And then she decided, I'm just going to take off, and went outside of the cabin or whatever. And then they couldn't find her, and she was drowned. Right? Yeah. And they were like, maybe she tried to go back to shore. It was I don't know that many details of the story, but it's super suspicious. But at the time, it was just ruled an accidental drowning. But now we've learned all this information. And Christopher Walken won't talk. Like, he's taking like the fifth. Like, there's a weird thing. It's bizarre.
Well, isn't the rumor that they were banging?
Yeah,
I think she was banging Christopher Walken, and Robert Wagner found out about it. And they all happened to be on a boat, and It's
a very, very bizarre story. But anyway, so there used to be all these jokes about Natalie Wood drowning.
It's a very odd story, but it kept us from talking about this episode for the last 15 minutes.
Yeah, I don't know what we're talking about. Well, it also woke me up. Maybe you know what? Maybe I'm not even just tired. Well, I think look, here's what I think. Here's my theory. I feel like the exhaustion has not given me the energy I need just to power through the episode.
Right.
And so but when I'm talking about something else, I'm like, woohoo, but when I'm talking about the episode, again, I want to reiterate, I don't think it was a bad episode. I was thoroughly entertained when I was watching it, but there's just not much to say about this episode. There really isn't, even though we've been talking for an hour.
The issue is there is no conflict. They got rid of Britta, and she is the only one that there was really, because I was thinking about this morning. Does anybody that's left fight with anybody? No. Possibly Widow? But even then, I think that any sort of superiority that Widow had, kind of her knees got knocked out from underneath her this week. So she's not going to be picking fights with anybody next week.
Well, yeah, and I think we can only speculate. Maybe there were Sherry Pie storylines that we don't know about. In fact, I was going to point out, I had in my notes, early on in the episode, they flashed to Sherry Pie, and I legit was like, oh yeah, she's on this series. They do such a good job of obfuscating the presence of Sherry Pie that when I saw her, I was like, oh yeah, she's on this show.
It was weird that they didn't show her filming her commercial or her ad or whatever. But so then when they suddenly showed her and where she had a voiceover when she was walking, which they haven't done that when they've actually shown her. And then that they showed her commercial. But I get now that they did that because she was in the bottom. So they had to show how bad it was compared to...
That's true, but I also think in terms of time, they're running out of places to hide her. And so they have to make now decisions like, okay, what are we going to show? Because we can only show so much. We don't have enough material to cover her, And that's why I think, once again, they're doing a huge misdirection with premiering Celebrity Drag Race next week, because I think over the next 4 weeks we're going to see a lot more Sherry Pie. So they need to be pay no attention to the man behind the mask or the curtain. Look over here. Look over here. Look at this shiny new object. Because now they just I was telling you, Celebrity Drag Race runs episode 9, 10, 11, 12. The only thing left is the finale, which I wouldn't be surprised if they postpone it, or if they just
I was going to ask you about that at the end of the episode. Do you think that they will just hold off until things can go back to where they could do a live?
They
crowning?
may do that, or to be honest with you, I don't think they will. My only theory, because they just want to be fucking done with this season. They want it done. They just want it off out of their head, out of their hair, right? Just be done with it.
Yeah.
And so I think there might be some just reunion / finale, and that they. My theory is, I shouldn't say theory. My speculation is that, in Los Angeles County, we are still stay at home until May 15th. The numbers in LA County are steadily going down. Okay. So I'm thinking that perhaps by May 15th, there is at least, and this is what maybe they're hoping for, that there is a limited lift on the stay-at-home order to the point where they could, and I think this is what maybe they're hoping for, they can film at least a closed set, almost like the way they do the reunion finale as well. Okay, so and then I think that's what they're hoping for, and maybe they have a contingency plan in case that doesn't happen. So, but I think I don't think they would want to bring this back. I think they want to just bury this show, and thank God, luckily it was scheduled that All Stars 5 starts immediately the week after. So anyway, okay, so let's actually move on. Let's eliminate. Oh, we did Elimination Day. So you know what, Taylor? You know what it means? It's time for the looks.
The looks.
All right. Now you said you had nothing to say about the looks. All right, those were the looks. I forgot to pull the looks. Is there anything you need to see specifically? Anything you want to talk about?
Let's see. The ones that I really liked were, I really enjoyed Jan's look. I thought Jan's look was really pretty. I loved Gigi's look, the Christian Dior with the Veronica Lake hair with the wave over the one eye. I thought she looked very, very pretty. I'm trying to think who else was somebody that I really I love Nina, not Nina. Why did I say Nina? Jada's look. I thought those were probably my three favorite, all with three very different silhouettes. If I had to pick one, and I kind of liked Crystal's too. I thought Crystal's was a great variation on that. Some of the other ones were not necessarily as great, but I thought everybody looked beautiful. I thought if they were going on just Runway alone, they would have struggled a lot more to figure out whose looks were the best and the worst.
Okay. I can pull it up if you really need to see them.
That's okay. Do you want me to describe them, or
no?
Okay.
All right, Taylor, let's just actually look at we'll just look at the looks. Ready?
Okay.
Here we go. Let me make sure this is in the right order. And okay, remember, you have the time that they walk down the runway.
All right,
here we go. First up, and I'm going to shout it out. The first one up we have is, I got to see who it is. First up is Jackie Cox.
Jackie Cox is coming out in a 40s inspired dress where she is saying that she is a bride waiting for her soldier to come home. Very simple yet elegant. Right above the, right below the knee, and with a long sheer cape or overcoat.
Jan.
Jan is in an outfit that has lots of feathers in the front. Very full form, very long veil. And great makeup. I loved her makeup and her hair this week. Very dark lip with a black outline on the back, and very short, kind of similar to Michelle Visage hair from last week. But I thought that she looked amazing. Looks like there's some pheasant feathers, and then it says "I don't" on the back. She also ate
Jada
the ring.
Essence Hall.
Jada Essence Hall in a very form-fitting dress, super tight, big hair, big veil, big earrings. Everything is form-fitting, and then it kind of mermaids out. If there's sort of fishtails out at the bottom. Thought she looked absolutely beautiful with her big, oversized ring. She looked like a very happy bride on her wedding day.
All right, very good. Next, Gigi Goode.
Gigi Goode wearing something very Christian Dior inspired from, I would say, the 50s. Absolutely beautiful with lots of tulle underneath. And her Veronica Lake style hair with the platinum blonde with the wave over the one eye, wearing her Louboutins with the red backs on the shoes. Makeup, everything about this was just absolutely flawless.
All right, very good. Next up, Heidi in Closet.
Heidi in Closet wearing a full black wedding dress with a very full collar, oversized collar that kind of hoops around. It looks almost independent of itself. I thought that she looked amazing. I thought the dress was great. I wasn't crazy about the hair with the little tiara and her makeup, but otherwise the dress itself, a very strong look from Heidi. Widow Von Du, again, in a full figured form-fitting gown with it almost looked like a beaded veil over the top with black contact lenses in to sort of give her like a soulless look. And I thought that she looked amazing. The makeup was definitely very over-accentuated and a sort of a bustle that allowed for a big cape-like experience in the back.
All right. Crystal Method
giving very corpse bride, a dead zombie bride in a black dress with covered in dust, and she also cut out the fingers so that her fingernails could continue growing as they do when somebody dies. Stomping, kind of it's definitely telling a story, and her makeup was where she looked very Haunted Mansion. Looked beautiful though, beautiful Haunted Mansion.
All right, very good. And those are the looks. All right, very good. Taylor, now let's talk about the infomercials. Your thoughts on let's go through each infomercial. The first one we had was Jackie Cox. Did you have any notes on that? It was the one about I Dream of Jeannie.
Jackie, it was fine. It was definitely, I think that she was playing up the references to the 60s and 70s. And with the one thing going over and over again where it goes, for you, where she would just sort of point at things, was very funny. And it wasn't the best one, but it was a strong one.
I put stupid, not funny.
It was a good one. How about that?
I feel the looking to the other camera, and going, for you, like you're like you are a TV presenter who doesn't really know how to give life to your readings. I think it's so old hat. I think it's so hack. I think every teenager who does a fake commercial does that. Or they do the thumbs up. Like I've seen it a million times. Not original. Not a fan.
Jan was just way too much energy and too much of that. She was doing too much. That's really all I have to say about that. And it was at no point, I think Ross said, we need peaks and valleys, where she was just like in the stratosphere the entire time. And it's exhausting to watch somebody like that.
It was awful. I didn't like it. And another thing, drag queens, look, I have about these rules that you can't do anymore, right? One, stop doing the drag queen doing the deep voice. No one did that this week, but I'm just saying rule number one. Rule number two, we get it. 69 to you is a funny number, okay? We don't have to hear jokes, but no more 69 jokes, okay? Heidi did one too. At least she kind of saved it with a Club 96 reference, okay?
Yeah.
But we're done. The 69 jokes are done. No one thinks they're funny. Next, Jada Essence Hall.
Jada looked great in hers. What was she selling? I don't remember what she was. Oh, the
panties.
The panties, which it seemed like Rue was genuinely enjoying, though. That you could hear Rue laughing a lot with that one, where she didn't really laugh with anybody else's. And I thought that it showed some comedic stylings of Jada that we haven't really seen. Yeah. And the ability to sort of poke fun at herself for somebody who is very, poised and prides herself on being very glamorous and very much I am a woman. For her to make the joke about Grey's Anatomy being the terrible actress and just some of the things that she was saying, I thought spoke to a vulnerability, and it showed in her commercial.
I put good. It was good, solid, actually. Yeah. And she was in the top, right? She deserved to be in the top. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, she was in the top.
Gigi Good, telling the one about going to sleep.
I liked Gigi Goods. I thought it was funny. I thought that there was enough of and the joke that Ross said, as far as you end with the, lavender pine and, horse tranquilizers, I thought that the way she did that actually was better because it's kind of snuck in there in a way that it's not where you don't end on the joke. You have to kind of think about the joke a little bit. I thought it was smarter to put the horse tranquilizers in the middle and have the other things on the other side. If she had done it where there were 4, I think it would have been better. But, she also kind of made some funny faces and she did some things where she was passed out. And I thought she looked great. I loved her top. I feel like they were sort of just kind of nitpicking with hers compared to others. Or they didn't want it to be where they didn't want to have a Bob the drag queen of where everything she does is just absolutely amazing and put her in the top.
It was fine. It wasn't as bad as they made it out to be. I agree with Ross about the rule of 3. She should have hit the joke on the third one. Next, Sherry Pie. Your thoughts on Sherry Pie? Oh, we won't talk about that. Or do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
No.
Heidi. Your thoughts on Heidi in Closet?
I thought Heidi's was funny too. My husband thought it was very funny, but he loves Heidi. And just the whole laying around and rolling around and screaming and yelling. That's always kind of funny to watch. So that's of all the ones that were there, it probably should have won. Yeah. So it's
here's the deal. I'm getting tired of the fucking whistling through the teeth. All right, we get it.
Yeah.
Okay. It's becoming Detox's chin wiggle. Okay. We get it. You can whistle through your teeth. Stop. If she does it again after this week, I will fucking burn the house down. All right.
Oh, good.
Look, just as I thought Gigi's wasn't as bad as the judges said it was, I don't think that this sketch was as funny as the judges made it out to be. I feel like I said,
I would agree with that.
With the exception of with a couple of exceptions, they all stick pretty close to the average line to me. Jan particularly bad. Jada's particularly good, but the other ones are, it's very, very, very slim. Widow, I just wrote, and I don't know what this means. I just wrote no.
Yeah, there was no life to it. There was no. I mean, I think somebody said that it was joyless, and that was sort of what it. There was nothing. There was nothing even remotely where she's trying to be super poised and super calm, but then she's doing this weird thing at the end where she's making all these weird faces, and it didn't feel genuine to who we know Widow to be.
Yeah. So, and then finally we have Crystal. Your thoughts on Crystal's performance?
Crystal's was charming. There was something very charming about Crystal's, and I think that's what when we talk about the charisma. The issues with, I don't know that she has charisma, but she has charm. And I think that's what we like about her. And she's also playing into her assets, which is that mullet haircut, which is why, she was smart to accentuate the mullet this week.
So here's the thing. Crystal's was fine. Okay. But now, just like with Heidi and look, as you all know, since episode 1, not from before episode 1, but since episode 1, I've been a big Crystal fan, right?
Yeah.
But now the show's going to where they're going to try and really push Crystal on you. And we're like, just calm down. All right, show. Like, it was fine. It wasn't the greatest thing ever. It was about the mullet and it was fine. It wasn't, they were like, so funny. And I was like, it wasn't that funny.
But do you think that part of that is because we don't have a lot of things to look at? You figure at this point there are, as of this episode, there were 8 queens. We only really looked at 7 of them, and none of them are fighting. So they're trying to keep us engaged in some way with the show. Yeah. So they're definitely pushing the narrative even harder than they would be, because normally the narrative is pushed through conflict. There is no conflict this season.
Could be. I will say props to Heidi. I don't know why a lot of queens don't follow this lead. When RuPaul tells you to do something, she's telling you, I am going to read you for this. I almost wonder, one of the things that the drag race, one of the things the Drag Race show did early on was they were making a joke at first where boy RuPaul was Tim Gunn and girl RuPaul was, Heidi Klum. Okay?
Yeah.
And since then, now it's become a thing. And when I've talked about this too before, it's funny that to me, even though obviously logically I know that boy RuPaul and girl RuPaul are the same person. I know this, right? But even still in my head, to me, they're brother and sister. They're not necessarily the same person, right?
Okay.
And so I wonder if the queens fall into this, so they think, well, boy, RuPaul doesn't know what girl RuPaul's thinking about. Because boy, RuPaul will literally tell you what to do, and then they don't do it. They're like, I'm just going to stick to my thing. Now, rarely it works, like Gigi Good, but most of the time I think Heidi played it smart by saying, RuPaul said to do this, I'm going to literally do what RuPaul said. And then she wins the challenge.
think that also there is a level of confidence there. I think that Gigi has a level of confidence that Heidi doesn't necessarily have.
Yeah.
And which is why when she came to her at Snatch Game, she's like, nope, I'm still going to do that. And that's what I want to do. And I think that it paid off. Yeah. Whereas I think that if Heidi had done something similar, Heidi's been in the bottom Heidi just came off being in the bottom last week. So it makes sense that I'm going to do what she says because I'm going to follow her. I'm going to follow her blueprints because if I don't, then I'm fucked.
Yeah. All right. Very good. Any other thoughts on the infomercials, Taylor?
No, I think we said everything there is to say about them.
All right, on the main stage, Heidi in Closet is named the winner of the challenge, while Crystal, Jada, and Jackie round out the top 4. Gigi and Sherry squeak by with safe places, leaving Widow, Von'Du, and Jan to lip sync for their lives. The song, This Is My Night by Chaka Khan. After both girls strip from their heavy gowns to reveal a lip syncing outfit, Widow outperforms Britta's New York sister, sending Jan back home to the Big Apple. Taylor the Latte Boy, any final thoughts on the episode?
Well, as I said, this was one of my favorite lip syncs ever on the show.
Crazy, but okay.
Widow, I feel like Widow was feeling it. And as, anybody who saw Untucked, the fact that she sat next to Chaka Khan and Chaka Khan kind of talked her through it and everything, that really kind of added to the connection of it. The first note when she threw back that bustle, or whatever you want to call it, on the cape, you knew that's it. She won. And then I don't get, we've seen this at least twice, possibly 3 times this season. And I know we've seen it in other seasons of where the song starts and the queen is immediately working on trying to get her way out of a dress where she's struggling.
It's a new thing.
So we saw it with Rockham, and then we saw it last night with Jan where she was trying to get why wouldn't you just girl, it's been 12 seasons. We know there's going to be reveals, and I don't think that Rue barely knows everybody's name. Yeah. So the fact that she came back and she magically had straps on her dress that she didn't have before, I don't think people are going to be suddenly, well, why are there straps there? I don't understand. You're doing yourself a disservice if you are not ready to just rip off whatever you're having to show a reveal when you come out on the runway. We see that with All Stars. On All Stars, they have time to get changed into different outfits from what they wear when they do the runway. Why can't these girls have the same opportunity to do that or to prepare for that in that way?
They do,
because the second they cut to her, well, I understand they do Untucked. They kind of do Untucked on All Stars.
Yeah, but she obviously changed during Untucked.
Who did? Jan?
Yeah.
No, she had the dress on underneath her dress. But what I'm saying is she had straps that when she dropped the wedding dress and there was the mini skirt underneath. When the song first started, she was trying to work her way into the straps of the mini dress. So why not just come out with the dress, or why not have when Rockham did the thing with the ball dress? Have some sort of way, you almost want to, if you're going to wear these outfits, I feel like it would be smart for future contestants to, if you are going to wear these outfits, make sure, one, that either there's something you can lip sync in, either a fast song or a slow song. 2, if it's not something you can lip sync into a fast song, have a reveal worked into the dress when you are having it constructed or when you are making it, whether it's ripping the bottom off a skirt or having something where you can tear the whole thing off, or doing something to give you that moment where you have to almost construct these things prior to you even coming on the show. I know with like Rockham, they had to create that, the ball, they had to create that there, but it just was very disappointing to me. I think Jan, though, whether that was then nerves that she didn't get in the dress fast enough, but manic is the only way to describe the way that she was lip syncing. And when she does death drops, they are the sloppiest Alyssa Edwards looking death drops, where she looks like she's giving herself head injuries. Like there's no other way to say that. And like the one leg kind of flops out and everything. I like Jan. I liked Jan over the course of the time that she was on the show, and she definitely made for an interesting presence. But this was messy.
One of the things I forgot to mention earlier was during the mini challenge, Jackie Cox was doing her character. I was getting just like she was just redoing Lisa Rinna. She was just doing her Lisa Rinna character with that voice, and that's the voice Jackie does. It reminded me of, this is how Jackie sees women. Like as
wow, that's
well, every time she does,
that's a broad stroke you just did there.
Oh, you making a joke about broads? Look, Taylor, it's very offensive. And very 1940s of you. Okay, let's go to some questions we have here. Let's see if there's anything we missed. Drew Brooks, and this has 2 upvotes, wants to know, why do you think Rue hates Jan? Do you think Rue hates Jan, Taylor?
I don't think Rue hates Jan. I know that there have been jokes made about Jan saying she wants to be like either the first mainstream drag queen or the biggest drag queen in mainstream, or something like that. And people are like, Rue took offense to that, which is why she's knocked it down a peg. I think that Jan does not seem to be able to take notes, whereas they're telling her, take a breath, give us peaks and valleys. And she is constantly at the, I can dance, I can sing, I can act. Like she said that most of the episodes of this season, where she's just pushing all the time. That's exhausting to watch, and that's not something where I feel like she would represent Rue as a drag as the next drag superstar. I could see Jan learning from this experience and coming back a strong contender for an All Stars.
Someone else said I could not see Jan on All Stars. She's so boring. Anyway, whatever. That actually goes to the next question. Why are white people so upset to see Jan go? Taylor, go. You're white.
I'm white. Well, speaking on behalf of my people, I think it's that Jan has talent, and Jan is cute, and Jan is young, and Jan is thin. And I think that's what that boils down to.
You're right. That's exactly what it is. Because if there were a person of color who was not attractive, because I'll be honest with you, and people are going to say whatever, I don't see a big difference in terms of quality between her and Jaden Dior Fierce. To me, they're on the same level.
Jaden Dior Fierce from season 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
They're the same drag queen to me, but the people was anybody upset that Jaden Dior Fierce went home?
No, because Jaden
Dior Fierce cried and had this weird panic attack. She's always like crying. I don't know. She had her dumb catchphrases. Jantasy and all this thing with Jan. Give it a rest.
Which that came out of nowhere in the last week. Like that's almost where I don't remember her hearing her say that before.
And then they probably did the same thing they did to this Jaden Dior Fierce. Remember, Jaden Dior Fierce had her catchphrase. She should have. Season 7, they were aware the girls were doing this catchphrase thing, and they limited them. So, for instance, we only heard Mrs. Kasha Davis say, "There's always time for a cocktail" when she left. She didn't say any other time. Jaden Dior Fierce was trying to push "Work That Puss," and they only showed it at the end. There's everyone should know in the chat room, all the white people are losing their fucking minds because I said that Jaden Dior Fierce and Jan are similar. By the way, I'm talking about television personalities, not quality of drag. Okay? Just because you want to fuck somebody does not mean they deserve to be on this show. Thank you.
Well, okay.
I'm tired. It is weird. I had Zach on the air yesterday, and there was a whole discussion, Taylor, with Zach and Spiral Queen and Lauren Eckert, where they were all making the case for Jan about she was just this iconic queen. And I was like, I didn't see this. What are you talking about? Evan Ayers on Twitter, Justice for Jan, #Justice for Jan. I'm like, what did she do this season? What did she do?
You know what she did? She didn't win last week. People bought into the narrative that she should have won. and then to be where that, and then she was heartbroken. And, you know, you said yourself, you don't like to see a twink cry.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that people buy into that, and they don't necessarily like to see a sad, young, white, gay twink.
Yeah.
You know,
not get her way.
Because she wasn't good. I don't think that Widow was good. If Jan had knocked it out of the park with the lip sync, I think Widow could have possibly gone home.
Mm-hmm.
But because we haven't really seen anything from Widow other than the first episode.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she's definitely been middle of the road. And she has, other than being kind of like narrator, you know, which even then it's not narrator, it's just kind of being bitchy in confessionals. She hasn't really done anything. I think that I really think this lip sync saved Widow.
You know, Nicholas Alexander Springham in the chat room has a really good theory here. He says, I think white people like Jan because they identify with her as someone with talent who wants it so bad and wasn't mean and isn't obviously problematic. They see themselves in her or how they would try to be on the show. But, you know, I'm actually thinking in my head, and with maybe the exception of Jinx Monsoon, but I feel Jinx Monsoon is quirkier than Jan, are there any queens who are like, I can sing, I can dance, I can act? And I don't even know but he didn't. Ben didn't win. Like, in what universe do you win because of that?
Alaska.
Alaska is still quirky. Jan's not selling quirkiness. See, that's the thing, is Jan and Jinx are selling that they're comedy queen, quirky comedy queens. But I'm talking like the closest person she hasn't won, I would say, is Ginger Minge.
Okay.
But those queens don't tend to do well. I don't know why there's this belief like, I can sing, I can dance, I can act. And okay. Great. That's
Luke is saying Alexis Michelle.
Yeah, exactly. And how did she do?
Yeah.
Humble Pie says literally Davida De Campo. Yeah, how did she do? I mean, she was in the top 3, but she didn't win. And I think she should have won. Remember, everybody, when I'm saying this, there is one judge, jury, and executioner on RuPaul's Drag Race. Her name, RuPaul Charles. Okay? And so remember, this is RuPaul's world and we all live in it. And I'm just saying, when you look at the history of people who have won this show, I don't see a history of musical theater queens just knocking it out of the ballpark.
But do you think that part of that is that they want to give the contestants that come in, like a Jan, like an Alexis Michelle,
yeah,
like that. Wait a second, I just thought of something.
Yeah,
Jan's talking about how Britta was the one that kind of like brought her up through the drag world.
Yeah, and
that's why they're such good friends, isn't it? Wasn't she saying before that Alexis Michelle was doing that? The reason why she got involved with drag was because Alexis Michelle saw her do Kris Kardashian or Kris Jenner.
Taylor, this Jan doesn't know anything what she's talking about. Okay, like she was crying because my dad, for instance, he's like Fonzie, right? He can't cry, so whenever he cries, he starts coughing. That's how he cries. Okay, 'cause I'm not crying. A man doesn't cry, so I cough, right? And because he's not going to cry. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing as Jan. I'm crying, but I'm crying because of my friend. I'm not crying because I didn't win this challenge that I thought I was supposed to win.
Yeah.
Thank you. Luke Seaman, by the way, loved Jaden Dior Fierce. Well, she has one fan.
I have fond memories of Jaden Dior Fierce only because of the show. Because that was the first episode of Drag Race I ever guested on. Was one of her lip syncs.
Oh. All right. Nicholas Alexander Springham. Now, this might be repeating what we said. If you were Jan, would you have strategized and said someone besides Widow when they are asked who should go home in hopes it would give panel another option to put someone in the bottom 2, knowing going up against Widow for a Shaka Khan was suicide?
Well, we didn't even really talk about that. That part of that had to have played in her nerves. As she talked about in Untucked, that she had to know. She had to know at that point if it was her, she was going home. There was no way, unless Widow like shit on the stage that they were gonna send her home next to Shaka Khan when she was such a huge Shaka Khan fan that she wasn't going to give 150% to sing and to lip sync in front of Shaka Khan. Not that Shaka Khan was aware where she was.
I was going to say that. It's so funny that you said that. That was in my notes. I forgot to say that. Did Shaka Khan know where she was?
No. Shaka Khan had no idea. Whatever she was on, I want some to get me through this quarantine, because she was on a completely different plane of existence.
Yeah.
When she came into Untucked, when you look at all of the other girls that are all of the other people that have come in and sat with the contestants on Untucked, let alone the level of excitement that all of the girls were, she was like, and I know that she's had challenges with substance abuse in the past and stuff, but she was a huge cokehead. But she just, where like, even like just kind of sitting and talking and stuff, we were both kind of not making fun of her, but we were laughing and kind of cracking jokes at Shaka Khan's expense on the couch last night. As far as that, where she realized halfway through that they were all men.
I'm not even joking. I had so little sleep last night. I feel like Shaka Khan right now. I don't even know where I am. It's gonna be
your hair looks like it.
I don't think my hair looks bad.
I don't like it with the slicked back, but I also get that we're living in a world.
I'm doing it like. Otherwise, it would look. I need it to be controlled. That's the only way I can control it right now.
Okay, and you know what? With it slicked back, I can totally make out the gray more in your hair.
You can?
The little gray streaks that you have, yeah. I've noticed I'm starting to get a couple of the long ones in the front. I'm starting to get little gray. I'm starting to get little grays in the front too. But you sent me a Snapchat, or you sent me a Marco Polo the other day of your hair, which you look like Sideshow Bob, but you could totally make out because the camera, where you could totally make out how much more gray you have. I didn't realize how gray you were getting.
I'm gonna edit that out of the
Some twinks like that. It'll add another place for you to meet people on silverdaddies.com.
I don't have any gray. I don't know what you're talking about, Taylor. I think it was the lighting. Anyway, all right. Well, have you seen?
What was that laugh?
Right, I was doing Britta. That was the same thing too.
So Jan thought with me gone, she'd have a chance.
I promise we talk about this.
No fucking way.
When she goes like, where Britta is like, see ya in New York, see you in the funny papers, and walks out, and then she's like, you know. And same thing with this Jan. Jan's like, by the way, Jan very, very presumptuous. Like, world, thank you for loving me. Was that enough? Yeah, she said that, and I was like, and I actually goes like, I can't wait to go out there and meet everybody and make a lot of money or something. I'm like, note from the future. Don't write any cash.
Well, and they also
don't write any checks.
They are doing these girls wrong this season, because on Untucked, when Shaka Khan was slurring her, inspirational speech to everybody, she talked about there are times that you will be winners and there were times that you will be losers. And as they said losers, they put Jan up on the screen, Jan listening to her. That it was this. I'm like, that was an editorial choice on somebody's part. And they did a
lot of foreshadowing on the show. In the top of the show, I have a note here. Jan said something about because I knew she was going home because of rumor mill. She goes something about dreams being stripped away. And I was like, because she's going to see Britta's dreams stripped away. I'm like, bitch, give it a day.
TikTok.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week's episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. This episode was produced by Luke Stamen. Be sure to join us next week and every week as we continue to discuss, dissect, and deconstruct each brand new episode of RuPaul's Drag Race Season 12. So, for Taylor the Latte Boy and myself,
sashay away until next week.
Thank you for listening to RuPaul's Drag Race Recap. Have something to say? Email us at dragracerecap@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Drag Race Recap. If you want access to more Season 12 content, support us on Patreon at patreon.com/afterthoughtmedia. You can follow Taylor the Latte Boy on Twitter and Instagram at PIMCTaylor. Follow Joe Betance on Twitter and Instagram at Joe Betance. That's JoeBetance. The theme song was written by Lucian Piani and arranged and performed by Alex Lefebvre. This episode was produced by Luke Stamen. Drag Race Recap is an Afterthought Media podcast.